Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3Chart. Welcome to another episode of People's Questions, where I answer all the questions that you guys have sent me over the past week. We got a pretty standard episode, and I think from all regulars, I think there's only like maybe one or two questions that might be a little bit complicated and difficult to answer for this episode, but so far it looks pretty simple. So starting off real simple with the first question coming from Santiago Scarpino. You want to know, which is my favorite and least favorite Nostalgia Critic episode? I guess my least favorite is one of his more recent videos, which was The Mummy, which I'm not sure he was serious about that, because I absolutely love the 1999 Mummy movie. Absolutely love it. And I also really enjoyed its sequel. Not so much the third one, but it is leaps and bounds ahead of the most recent Tom Cruise Mummy movie by far. So I would say my favorite one that he did, I think it was the devil one. I thought it was just hilarious. I mean, just the concept of you have these people stuck in this elevator, they're being killed off by the devil, and just, I mean, that movie was a total mess, and that they somehow made a stupid concept funny, because you had Rita Repulsa, Santa Claus, the devil, and Nostalgia Critic all stuck together. I just thought it was absolutely hilarious. Definitely my favorite episode video review that he's ever done by far. Next question comes from, and you told me to try to spell it out as it sounds. Okay. I think I got the second part down, but I'm still having problems with the first one. But is it Alucerna? I'm confident about the second half, not so much the first. But you want to know, if I had to either have Dante, if I was either Dante, Virgil, or Nero sword, which one would I have? Rebellion, Yamato, or Red Queen? Oh, and okay. Well, okay, so basically out of all three of those swords, which one I want? Yamato. No question. Red Queen and Rebellion are just too stinking big. They're too big. I don't want to carry a gigantic sword. I mean, Yamato is basically a basic katana. I could walk around with that. And it's definitely far more useful. I mean, Rebellion and Red Queen have, you know, I mean, Rebellion's a pretty standard broadsword, and, you know, Red Queen has the throttle effect, but Yamato is by far the most powerful. And if I'm correct, that thing can cut through dimensions, so that pretty much seals it for me. Next question comes from Diadrive CJ, who had by far the most extensive and complicated question that I've seen in some time. Why do you people do this to me? And you want to know, what if I could live 1,000 years without further aging, deteriorating, have immunity to all diseases, viruses, poisons, toxins, could survive and even thrive in low to zero oxygen environments, immense pressure, and along with having 40% of any of your children or grandchildren being like that as well? In this scenario, counting yourself, there are 2,000 people such in the whole world. Dear God, what would I do how would I handle it in short, mid, and long term? Well, is there video games? Are there movies? Is there food? I mean, I don't think it'd be that difficult. I would just keep living my life the way I've always lived it. It would just be very, very extensive. So, I don't know. I mean, for such a complicated question, it's such a very simple answer. Next question comes from Goku-san. You want to know, will I be doing a Mass Effect 1 Shepard vs. Solid Snake? No. No. What, Goku-san, what makes you think that Mass Effect would mash well with Metal Gear? You have Metal Gear, which is very grounded in reality to some point. I mean, gigantic bipedal tanks that are able to carry nukes, and, you know, AI controlled systems and nanobots and AI control systems. I mean, it's kind of crazy. But you're comparing that to space travel. I mean, these are just two completely different universes. I mean, as cool as Solid Snake is, Shepard is operating on such a much higher level. This man is flying across multiple galaxies, interacting with all kinds of alien beings. I mean, all this information would just overload Solid Snake's brain to the point where he probably just committed suicide because it's just so overwhelming. So, no, a match between Shepard and Solid Snake would not be a very good idea, so it's never going to happen. I'm sorry. I'm real curious where you get the idea that Mass Effect and Metal Gear would mash up very well. I'm really curious. Next question comes from Yoda. You want to know top 10 favorite anime characters. Mostly all Dragon Ball Z characters. I'll keep it simple. I mean, it can be in any order. I mean, Goku, Vegeta, I don't know, Gohan, Tien, Piccolo, Cell. I don't know. I mean, I watch anime, but to kind of put them in any kind of order is just difficult. It's not really. Anime is not really one of those things that I can just logically put which one is better in terms of characters, because everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and so that's a very difficult list to do. So it would just be kind of all over the place. But I'm guessing most of it might be Dragon Ball Z characters, maybe. Next question comes from the Immortal Superman. You want to know, who do I think would win this fight, General Kenobi or Darth Malgus? You know, the funny thing about that is that Jen Sarai and Antoine Bandela actually already did that matchup, and I have to agree. As much as I don't like to see Obi-Wan Kenobi lose, he would probably lose to Malgus pretty simply. I mean, Obi-Wan Kenobi is openly considered to be the quintessential Jedi, but Malgus is the quintessential Jedi killer. Probably more so than even Darth Vader, who is pretty much all he is a Jedi killer. Everything about his tactics, approach, and skill set is just shaped to specifically kill Jedi. But I think Malgus does it with just far more aggression, and he doesn't have all the handicaps that Darth Vader had to fight through. So Malgus would definitely win, as hard as it is for me to admit that. The next question comes from Cassie J. Williams. Wants to know, if I saw Jurassic Park 3, which I did, was I disappointed with the Spinosaurus killing the T-Rex as other fans were? No. I mean, I actually don't mind Jurassic Park 3. It's got its flaws, but it also has its moments. No, I wasn't disappointed, because I think going into that movie, you all have this idea that the T-Rex is just so unstoppable. I mean, it's like the biggest, baddest dinosaur in the dinosaur kingdom. And so to have the Spinosaurus come in and just kill it with very little effort, it kind of shows you that, yeah, there's always a bigger dog. So I didn't mind that. And heck, that almost happened again in Jurassic World, where the T-Rex was getting its ass kicked by the Indominus Rex until the Raptor came and they started just tag teaming it. So no, I was not disappointed. I mean, at least Jurassic Park 3 had the balls to go out and actually get the T-Rex out of the way to kind of show you that, yeah, T-Rex is not the top threat in this movie, and I really appreciated that. Next question comes from Alba Mera. I hope I said that right. You want to know, what are my thoughts on the second season pass announcement for ungrateful fans claimed by Square Enix for Final Fantasy 15? I didn't like it. I don't think this is... I already got the first season pass. I have no interest in getting the second one. I mean, I was really always interested in getting these episodes that follow the individual members of Noctis's party. I mean, I've already done Gladiolus, I've already done Prompto, and I want to get Ignis, and that's the last one I'm going to get. And then after that, I'm ready to move on to like another game. Whether or not I'm going to play another Final Fantasy game, that's very questionable. I kind of stated that this would be the last Final Fantasy game that I would play. But after that, I don't really need any more content. The game brought the franchise, in my opinion, back on track, and that's all I asked for, and it did that. They don't have to expand it anymore. Next question comes from Cyborg136. You want to know, what is my expectations for the new God of War game coming out? You know, somewhat high. Hopefully it's going to be good. It's going to definitely look like a very different type of game than we've had before in terms of the God of War franchise. But I think that's necessary, because if you actually look at all the previous God of War games outside of God of War Betrayal, they all very much look and play very similar. They have the same type of mechanics, they use the same type of cameras, they have some, for the most part, some of the same gameplay elements. And so the fact that they're doing something different makes it feel very refreshing. And that's something I really appreciated. And we're seeing a different side of Kratos. I mean, Kratos has already been a parent, and that didn't quite work out too well the first time. So I'm really kind of curious to see what he's like, much older, much wiser, having pretty much gotten rid of all the Greek gods and now dealing with Norse mythology. I think is a really interesting concept, and that's something I'm really looking forward to. So hopefully it's a great game. Next question comes from Matt Cruz. You want to know, who would be a good matchup for Cole from Infamous that is a Delson? It depends on which Cole you're talking about. I mean, if it's Infamous 1 Cole, you know, I think, for the most part, I think everybody in Second Son probably could take him out. But if you're comparing Infamous 2 Cole, depending on whether it's Hero Cole or Infamous Cole, I don't really think there's anyone in Second Son that would be a good match for him. I mean, he would just pretty much overpower everyone. I mean, even Augustine. I don't even think Augustine would stand much of a chance against like Beast Mode Cole, for example. So I think it just really depends on which, you know, Cole you're talking about. Next question comes from Demetrius Puffer. You want to know, do I think I can do a whole video on how I would do Batman vs Superman? For one, I wouldn't do it at all. There is the problem with the whole Batman vs Superman thing is that it's something that you couldn't really do until much later. I thought it was way too soon. I mean, if you even go back into the actual origins of that storyline in, you know, the Dark Knight Returns, they had known each other for decades. I mean, they had had a long history, and it had only really been it had only been recently after Jason Todd's death that the Justice League was kind of forced to break up, and then Batman went into retirement, and then he came back. And you have to remember that the only reason that that fight ever happened was because of Superman, so it wasn't really his fault. Next question comes from Rob16164, and you wanted to know what is my list of Linkin Park songs, so I'm listening really fast. And it is 1, Lost in the Echo, 2, Given Up, 3, Keys of the Kingdom, 4, War, 5, New Divide, 6, Talking to Myself, 7, Burn It Down, 8, Good Goodbye, 9, What I've Done, and 10, The Catalyst. And with that, next question comes from Abel Z. You want to know what is my least favorite gaming companies? Number 1, only really 2. I don't like Telltale Games, I don't like Konami. And with that, those are the questions you guys sent in for this episode. I'd like to thank all of you guys for making this episode possible. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type in the comments down below. Make sure to get them into me before next Wednesday, before I start filming this episode. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.